If I saw your hand up, so do you want to move on to your response and closing statement, and then we'll move on to the other
I'll just
panelists?
do closing statement. Yeah, that's fine. Because it's almost 9, and sorry, I've had a lot of these conversations and really listened and reflected. And again, and I'll bite that, hey, I understand a true nervousness about spreading Marxism in America. I get that piece. But again, I think the conflation of that social emotional supports, addressing school nutrition, addressing just culture, embracing different cultures, the conflation of that is a big problem. And one thing that really, really bothers me is this mini insurrections happening in school boards across America, including Fairfax, Loudoun, including in Prince William, but people are foaming at their mouths, threatening school board members. They're getting death threats. Superintendents are getting death threats. Teachers are being attacked who happen to be parents, many of the teachers. I'm a parent as well. And not, I know Youngkin ran on this whole pay parents this, but what parents are we talking about? Because there's parents on both sides of the issue. So I think that people really need to reflect and look in their inner soul that what is their true intention. Please do that. I'm not trying to name call here and so forth. I really think we need to do this because I fear the biggest threat right now is this anti-CRT movement that's really rotting our country and eroding our country. It's not the other side. It's this hate and vitriol for the other and anybody speaking out for fair treatment. So please do reflect on that.
And I think I heard Martha trying to chime in earlier. So Martha, do you want to go ahead with your closing statements?
I'm going to take back the screen again because I do have one more thing I want to show. And I need to. Okay, so you will not be surprised to hear that my bottom line is, do we want a Marxist framework for education used in Prince William County schools? Do you want students to focus on activism or academics? There is evidence of the damage done in places like the Adena Public Schools in Minnesota. 6 years and millions spent on what we are about to do, and their outcome gaps have stayed the same or widened, and math and reading scores have suffered. We shouldn't be having a conversation about whether or not critical race theory is embedded in Prince William schools. That is the iceberg ahead, and it's irrefutable. So the discussion we should be having is, do we want a Marxist framework being used in K-12 education for social justice activism? Listen to Ms. Burgos, Prince William Director of Equity and formerly of Prince William County Schools.
I've been here. It's inclusion for everyone.
Okay,
everyone.
You're implementing a Marxist framework.
Well, understand the Marxist framework and you'll understand that how it's used in education, psychology, sociology today. Not all of it.
So you're admitting that it is used.
Not all of it, but that would imply that there is parts of it used. What parts are used?
Look at it up. Read it yourself.
Well, I mean, you seem to know, so could you just tell me? You seem to know.
Sociology, education.
Okay, Ms. Burgos, she admitted it.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Well, understand the Marxist framework and you'll understand that how it's used in education, psychology.
I am not the one claiming that it's a Marxist framework. The people implementing it are admitting it.
And thanks for that, Martha. Dr. Jory, can we move to you for your closing statements?
Firstly, I would just like to respond to Mr. Lott about certain books that should not be taught. I feel a lot of books are misleadingly labeled, and if we want our students to look beyond their personal experiences, we need to expose them to books written by people of color. And you know, two decades ago, only 9% of children's books published in the US were about people of color. And in 2016, only 12% of children's books were created by authors and illustrators of color. That's data in itself. But I wanted to end my presentation with an excerpt, a student's essay excerpt to the prompt, discuss how your past experiences will inform your future decision-making. As a child, my Uncle Kurt always told me, "You have strong blood." At first, I never understood what that really meant because I was too young to understand this concept. Growing up in a Native American household, I was exposed to the many cultural teachings that shaped my identity. Personally, the story of the changing woman is my favorite. Changing Woman, mother of the Navajo people, creates a beautiful view of the creation of life. She teaches the meaning of beauty, individuality, and the importance of fortitude. I held those teachings dear to me in times of distress and solitude, times when I sat concerned for my future in court waiting rooms, times when I felt captive and cuffed in a cop car, times when I felt nostalgic about the time I spent with my father who abandoned me in my childhood. But it's that strong blood that kept my head held high. And I'll leave by saying that, yes, we are obliged to leverage our proximity to students and listen to their narratives and sub-narratives and ensure equitable outcomes for all our students. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Jory. And Paul, we'll move to you to close things out.
Probably shouldn't say this publicly, but equity is not a natural construct. Survival of the fittest is the natural construct. And at the end of the day, everything will fall within that paradigm. Now, we cannot help the deer by breaking the leg of the lion. We have to help the deer run faster. Our students, when they leave school, they're not going to go into a quote unquote equitable society because that's just impossible. We know it's impossible. Humanity has tried it forever. It's never worked. We have no working models. But what we do have is a working model of in our system today where everyone has equal opportunity. Equal opportunity, not equity of outcomes. First thing, our education system has to respect parents, period. Even when the system disagrees with parents, parents need to come first. It is their children. The Supreme Court has ruled numerous times that children are not the property of the state. Therefore, you do not have the right to decide against broad parental wishes a curricula, a book, or whatever it is. Now, parents in Prince William deciding on books doesn't mean that they don't want Black authors. That's a huge jump. Just that having a Black author, no one has gone to a library debating whether or not who wrote the book and the race of the person who wrote the book. They've talked about CRT content, race-based content, sex-based content, et cetera, et cetera. That's what they've talked about. No one's ever gone and protested in Prince William County since I've been here that a book is in the library that was written by a Black person or a person of color. So that is an invalid argument. We need to, when you have a problem with the complex system, the way you fix it is to go back to its fundamentals. When a business is having problems, they sell off their additional divisions and they move back to their core business and they make sure they get their core business right. Prince William County needs to focus on its core business and not take on these conflicts that cause problems with parents, whether or not it's due to misunderstanding or not. It is not the parent's obligation to automatically trust the schools or to understand you. It is the school system's obligation, who are paid by the parents' money through their taxes, are elected by these parents. It is their responsibility to be responsive to parents, not vice versa. That has to stop. And that's what's destroying us. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. And I'm going to kick it back to Cynthia. I know that we had more questions, but unfortunately we have to conclude. So Cynthia, if you want to close things out.
Thank you. And I apologize that we can't get to all the questions. Maybe what that means is that we'll have to have a part 2 to this discussion, because I have really enjoyed and been enlightened by all the different perspectives. We just can't even get to all the questions that we have. We apologize for that.